Okay. Hi. Please tell us your name and your date of birth and where you were born and the first part of your life.
Okay, fine. My name is Wilda Parks, and I was born in Erie, Pennsylvania, and we moved around a lot when I was really little, so I've lived in a great number of states, been through almost all of them. I remember some, I've forgotten others, and that's probably just as well.
Okay. And so high school, where did you go to high school?
I went to high school at Newport Harbor Union High School in Costa Mesa, California, Newport Beach, Costa Mesa, and also Mojave High School in Mojave, California.
Oh, okay, a couple of places. And, okay, and then after that, you were kind of moved around with tell us a little bit about it.
Well, as a teenager, I married the first time when I was a teenager. So my eldest son was born when I was 16 years old, almost 17, but still 16. And his father and I got divorced, and then a couple of years later I remarried, and we lived in Porterville, California in the Central Valley. And then we moved to Montana, spent 10 years in Montana in a small town named Phillipsburg, which was just great, where I had my first public service, actually, was in Phillipsburg. And then when we moved back to California in like 1977, I went to junior college and then University of San Francisco, and my degree is in organizational management.
I see. And you had just the one child?
Oh, no. I have 4 children, 11 grandchildren, and 15 great-grandchildren now.
Oh, wow. So you were raising kids while you were going to college and all that, sounds like.
Yeah. And some of them were older. I mean, so, yeah.
And how about your parents? Where did they come from?
Pennsylvania, basically, as far as my sister and I know. There seemed to always be a bit of mystery about my mother and father and the people who lived in our household, and so we didn't really know a lot about them, and we didn't really know a lot about family, that they were part of and whatever. So it was just kind of an interesting situation. I've done some ancestry tracking, and the best I can find out, my father was, his parents were born in Ireland and came over here, and so he was first generation, American. I guess that's how you say that.
Yeah, first generation. I don't know. Yeah. You should just say that.
Yeah, and I know that I have one photograph of me when I'm about a year old, and it says I'm with my grandma Alice, who was my father's mother, but I don't recall her. Yeah.
Okay, all right. And let's see. So somehow, where were you before you moved to Milwaukie?
I was in the Central Valley of California. I ran the Hanford, California Chamber of Commerce, and before that, the Exeter, California Chamber of Commerce, which is in the adjoining county. So that was all down in the whole agricultural belt of California. And then 3 of my kids moved up here with all the little grandchildren, and so I wanted to be nearer them. They didn't have any other grandparents, and the ones in California had several. So, So I looked for a chamber up here, and that's what brought me here. It was the North Clackamas County Chamber of Commerce job.
And what year was that?
That was in 1998.
98. Okay. Yeah. All right. And so, what did you think when you first came here?
I thought I was in heaven. I'd lived in the flat San Joaquin Valley of California, and I'd actually visited here dozens and dozens of times. My sister lives up above Detroit Lake in a little town named Idana, which went through hell with the fires last year.
Oh.
Yeah, and so I'd come up to visit, my sister very frequently. And then my eldest son moved to the Seattle area and out on Bainbridge Island, and I would come up here to visit him.
Oh,
and then ultimately, Jody, my daughter, moved up here, and Leon, my youngest son, was in the military up here. So I came up several times, visiting. And every time I'd come up and I'd go back to California, as soon as I crossed over, I'd go, I don't know what I'm doing coming back here.
So, North Clackamas, who hired you?
The North Clackamas Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors.
Do you remember a couple of names, maybe?
Yeah, I remember that Ben Schellenberg was on the board at that point in time, and
Schellenberg.
Of Schellenberg Center, yes,
Okay.
yes. So Ben was on the board, and Marilyn Wall, she was the chair of the board. She was a local attorney. She and her husband Mitch, and the fire chief was a member of the board.
Demi DeSoto, was he on there?
Demi was the CEO of the chamber before I came up here. So he's actually the one, when he left the position, he told me that it was vacant and that I should apply for it. So I did. So he was the paid guy, like I was the paid person, and the board of directors are the volunteers who serve the organization.
Okay, so you came to Milwaukie and you got with the North Clackamas Chamber. What was really different about the North Clackamas Chamber compared to your other chamber jobs?
Well, most chambers of commerce, in fact, in the United States are singular community-served chambers of commerce, one city, one entity, and whatever. And the North Clackamas County Chamber of Commerce is just what it says, North Clackamas County. So it encompassed everything from, because...
What was different between the North Clackamas Chamber and the other chambers that you had been part of?
It's a really good question, because most chambers of commerce are singular, standalone, community, city, whatever you want to call it, chambers of commerce. The actual full legal name of the chamber here is the North Clackamas County Chamber of Commerce. So it is just exactly what it said. So our Chamber of Commerce included all the area from like Gladstone through the unincorporated Milwaukie, Happy Valley, and what became Damascus, Boring, Barton, Carver. All of that was what we would consider to be the domain of this Chamber of Commerce. But we also had, and probably still have, like about 80 members that were in Oregon City, even though they have their own Chamber of Commerce. And we work very well with, the other chambers of commerce.
So it was much larger than the other ones you were.
Yeah, larger than the others and able to take on different kinds of issues. And after I went to work here, one of the things that was important to me was that we get politically involved, and in a variety of ways. And so not only looking at endorsing candidates and taking positions on ballot measures and things like that, but we also, for a couple of years, we worked with the Oregon League of Women Voters, and with them and Joe Crum, who was a super, super person on the Chamber Board of Directors and a really, really good friend and mentor, somebody I highly respected. He and I were able to work with those other groups and start a candidate training workshop. And then ultimately we were able to do that on our own. We also had Leadership Clackamas County, and during that time we were able to start the Young Leaders Project for Clackamas County. So the adults and the kids that went to these classes about learning all about, the whole county and state and everything around you. It was 9 months of classes, once a month for 9 months. In fact, Sarah, you're a graduate of that. I'm also a graduate of that. Yeah.
And it was a wonderful 9 months. We didn't have the kids with us though. It was
in the beginning.
I think it was the first class you did.
Yeah.
Maybe the second.
Yeah.
Anyway, I believe we had 5 people out of that class go into political positions.
It's been that way throughout its entire history. I feel sad that they no longer do that.
Oh yeah, it was a great class.
I have a question. Was it bipartisan or was it?
Oh yeah, very
definitely.
much so.
Yeah, so.
Very, very much so. I mean, when we had speakers in, we might have, and half the time nobody even knew are they Democrats or Republicans, because quite frankly there wasn't a lot of animosity about one side or the other, or a lot of sort of like, oh my God, I'm a Democrat, I can't talk to a Republican. There was never any underlying things like that.
Yeah.
It was absolutely, totally bipartisan.
Plus, a lot of the stuff that we learned was how agencies work. Like,
Yeah.
how does the fire department work? How does the library
Yeah,
work?
right.
You know,
Yeah,
and
it
as a
wasn't-
political position, those are the kinds of things you need to know.
That's fascinating.
Right,
And
well,
they don't offer that anymore.
And we also used to do forum luncheons every month, and then for a while we did them every other month. We went through phases with them, and sometimes in those we would have a political issue that was Democrat and or Republican focused, and so we would have both sides there. We did candidate workshops, so that, or not workshops, candidate forums, so that before people voted, they could hear about the different candidates, and we would have Dems and Republicans and whatever. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It was
So they
Giving people the information
Yeah.
to make
Sure,
really
decisions.
responsible, sensible decisions, no matter what those decisions were.
One other question on my part. But they no longer offer this? Was it stopped because of COVID, or was it other
It
factors?
It stopped several years ago. Right now, the Chamber does prevent a program called Women in Leadership, and they say it's for men also, but I don't think I know of any men that have gone through it. I'm sure there must have been, but I don't know. But they don't do those kinds of forum luncheons, and they don't do the candidate training workshop and things like
Right.
that. They just kind of, things cycle in and cycle out.
Sure.
So you retired from the chamber. What year was that?
It was in 2012.
Okay. And you went on to become.
Yeah, well, it wasn't too long after that I was appointed on an interim basis, the mayor of Milwaukie. And before that, I served on planning commission, so that's kind of
In Milwaukie.
in Milwaukee. So that was the
why-
trajectory I
why
was going.
Milwaukee?
Why not? I mean, it's my city. It's where I live. It's where my home is. It's, and quite frankly, after I left the chamber, it was kind of nice to just be able to concentrate on one city and not, but still stay connected. I continued for years to go to like Good Morning Damascus and the Happy Valley Business Alliance meetings and Clackamas County Business Alliance and, all those kinds of things like that, and stay as involved as I could on many areas. But when it came to just, where do I want to give community service the most, it was Milwaukie.
Well, we won.
Yeah.
Because
Absolutely.
so you were appointed mayor.
Yeah.
And then that term was up, and someone else. And
Yeah, so it was an interim position as mayor, and I knew that Mark Gambo was going to run for the position, so I was fine with that. And I truly thought in the beginning, okay, I'll just serve this interim position, and then I'll go back on planning commission, sort of just take a leave of absence from planning commission. But I found it so enthralling, I guess, when you think about the kinds of things that a city council is able to do for its community, that was really impactful for me. And it isn't just the 2 or 3 things that people think of. I mean, it's hundreds of kinds of things that city council helps make the decisions on that help provide a more livable area, for people overall. So when I knew Mark was going to be elected mayor in a special election, I started lobbying and having other people lobby for me to be appointed to his vacant seat on city council. So that occurred. And then because that was another interim position, then I had to run an election for that seat. And all of this happened in 2015. So I'd been appointed mayor, appointed councilor, and then I won the election for that council seat, which had one more year to run. And so when that happened, I actually became the only person ever to have been sworn into office 3 times in 1 year. That's my claim to fame, I guess.
That's great.
Yeah.
So, are you still pretty active with the different city?
I try to be city, county. I'm a charter member of the Clackamas County Peace Officers Benevolent Foundation and an advisory board member for Parrot Creek Youth and Family Services. I'm a member of the Rotary Club of Milwaukie and have served as its president. I served on North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Advisory Board, which is now District Advisory Committee, for a great number of years and served as its chair. I serve as the chair of the Clackamas County Clackamas County General Fund Budget Committee. And I just accepted a position representing the city of Milwaukie as the representative from the city of Milwaukie to the board of the the Milwaukie Community Center Board of Directors.
Whoa.
Yeah, and thank you for that.
Yes.
And that's the position that I just left.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I've been on it too long. You gotta change.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you do.
Well, I've always felt that too, that you need to. It's one of the reasons why I didn't run for re-election. I had been on there at that point 6 years, and I thought it's time for somebody else with a different point of view. We got through some of the major things that I was concerned about, trying to make things more affordable for all lives who live here, including those who had lower incomes, as well as the seniors who have lower incomes and or difficulties in getting around and about to all the things. And so those were the kinds of things I tried to focus on when I was there. But
Nice.
I think it's good when there's change, after a while. Yeah.
That's the way I feel too. So what's changed between when you first came to Milwaukie and what's going on now that you like or don't like or anything?
Well, I think one of the things that's changed or changing is in the ways we're providing a variety of types of housing for people who want to live in Milwaukie. I know that some folks were disgruntled, some still are, about the first, 5-story building in downtown Milwaukie that's all apartment complexes, and they're market rate, and so they're not affordable, for those that need affordable housing, but we're working on that. And the county is rehabbing the whole hillside housing development, which has long been needed. And there are other housing properties coming online, even if it's like off Lake Road, the old Sharagino Farm, or off Railroad Avenue with, the 12 or 14 houses that are there, off of King Road, 14 houses that are there, different kinds of things like that. A lot more choice in housing, because it seems to me that even though a lot of what's being built is what I would consider higher end, if somebody moves up to that, it leaves more of the middle housing available for other people, so, and then there will be housing that is focused more on actual affordable housing for people. So I think that's one of the major things. We did a huge visioning process and involved hundreds of people that live in Milwaukie, and that had never been done before, to that extent. So those kinds of things that the city continues to do. I mean, they have this internet program now called Engage Milwaukie, and it's a way where anybody, no matter where they live in Milwaukie, or even if they live in the periphery of Milwaukie, can go on and voice their opinion and give suggestions and stuff about the kinds of things that are happening, like the comprehensive plan or the tree ordinance or the housing ordinance and parking and all those kind of things, right?
Yeah, they know me well.
Well, and the other thing that I think is really ramped up in the last few years, although now with COVID we've had to set things aside, is the Friday nights in downtown Milwaukie.
Those were great, weren't
they? They absolutely were. The farmers market has always been a hit ever since it went up, and it continues to be, and it's amazing. But in addition to that, all of the types of community get-togethers that the city of Milwaukie has been famous for, whether it's the umbrella parade or the solstice or whatever, those those things will come back online, come back in person, rather than, just being sort of set aside as they are right now.
So you sound like you feel like I do. Those community things are so important.
Well, they are. The name of them says why. I mean, it's community, which means getting together and understanding each other and meeting new people and making friends and understanding why your neighbor thinks like they do and whatever, because you have more of an opportunity to connect with them. And that's what I wish that more people in Milwaukie chimed into, became part of, whatever you want to call it, their neighborhood association, because that's where a lot of decisions then get filtered up to planning commission and city council or to other department heads and things like that. And if you want to know what's going on in your neighborhood or what kind of activities are being held, the neighborhood associations, NDA, Neighborhood District Association, are the place to do that. And it's in the Milwaukie pilot every month, so I hope more and more and more people will pay attention to that. I feel really gratified that the Linwood Association, which I'm part of, generally has 20 people on Zoom,
Nice.
close to it, 16 to 20 people, and I understand that that's larger than most.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, we have 21,000 people in Milwaukie, so where are they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and I used to always, when people would say, well, I haven't heard anything about this, I said, well, let's see, it was on TV, it was
Yeah.
on the pilot, it was in the Clackamas Review, it was,
Right. Right. People, unless it's something that all of a sudden really concerns them, they do tend not to be as involved. But I wish they would, whether it's something that they think is going to harm them, celebrate them, whatever,
Anything else you'd like the public to know about Milwaukie?
It's a great place to live,
Okay.
great place to do business. I would love to see the downtown more active again. I have a strong emotional feeling about downtowns, and I think that Milwaukie certainly has the opportunities. It just needs to have the people that are willing to take advantage of that.
Okay. Last thing. Can you say happy birthday to Milwaukie on their 120th birthday coming up?
Oh my gosh, it's 120 years, isn't that amazing? I remember the 100th celebration, and Ed Zumwalt and I were on a committee to help put the pieces together for that. And the people that played the parts of city council in that celebration 20 years ago, there were no women on city council. Women were not permitted to, and they didn't even have any interest in being involved in that. So the couple of women that were actually on city council at that time, as they did the play of that, they had to act like they were men, which was all the
Deb
funny
Barnes
thing.
had a little mustache.
It could be, yeah, it could be. I don't remember for sure, but yeah, it's hard to believe it's 120 years already. And yes, absolutely, happy birthday, Milwaukie! And here's to another 120, right?
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Excellent.